I always say excited, so I want to think of another word, but I am thrilled to be speaking with Sabrina Victoria, who I had the pleasure of meeting, I don't know, maybe a year ago, a little less, but was just so profoundly moved by all of the things that you're doing that I wanted to know more and be a part of it. And so Sabrina Victoria, for you guys out there, is, she's a slacker, really. We really need to take a page from her book because she's the CEO and creator of, let's see, Human Better 365, Sober Society, Her Nation, and I saw a jacket. I missed that one. I didn't write down another organization because, why not have three when you can have four? So thanks for being here.
Yes, girl. It's all
I
about
love
big
it.
vision. It's all about big vision.
Yes, you know what? And they all tie in. So I'm kind of immersed in sober society, right? Because I'm an addiction recovery coach, so it really aligns with who I am. And also Her Nation, which is empowering women to really show up fully expressed from what I gather and chase their big visions just like you have.
Yes, 100%. It's all about storytelling. That's my whole thing is women need to be sharing their stories. There's so many warriors amongst us. And we like shove our stories down. We don't like anybody seeing it. We want to be all shiny and shiny and glittery on the outside. And it's really the story that creates the value in who we are as a human. And I believe that with all my heart.
I agree, which is why I created What's Your Story? So we're going to learn what's your story. So, you know, something that really called to me to get you into my community was your TEDx talk on subtle nuances of domestic violence. And I really wanted my community, particularly, to hear from you because so often I talk to people who struggle with addiction who have a really hard time grappling with the fact that they're in a domestic violence situation because there's not physical violence. So, can you share with me kind of your journey in moving through domestic violence and then not only surviving, but thriving and overcoming it?
Yes, yes. It's such an interesting place to be right now because I never in a million years would have thought the life that I have now is possible. And I just trusted. I always joke that I was not saved by women, which is why I help women. I was actually saved by white old men.
I believe that. Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because when I found out, so my journey into like knowing, there's always like a pivotal point where you find out and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm being abused. When it's silent abuse, you do not know it's silent abuse for months, years, decades, sometimes. But when I found out, I was on my bathroom floor having a total mental breakdown, which was like current, which was something that was happening all the time. But this was specific day. I was on the bathroom floor. I was crying. I was screaming, like the kind of like yelling and screaming where like death is coming out of you, just dying inside. And I remember pulling my phone out from my back pocket with like tear filled eyes. I could barely see the screen. And I just wanted answers so badly. I'm like, I'm living in this perfect house. I have the perfect car. We're making money. And I am so miserable in my relationship. I hate my life. And I Googled, why is my boyfriend bullying me? Because he was
Mhm.
so freaking mean. And
Yeah.
I would always just say, you're such a bully. Why are you being such a bully? And Google is the one that actually told me that I was in a highly narcissistic relationship, right? We can't diagnose. He's not diagnosed. So tons of narcissistic traits. Um, but Google told me that not only was there are a ton wrong with my partner, but there was also a ton wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. That had
And
to be a
that,
slap in the face.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the caveat. That was really the thing where I was like, because as an empath, right, we always were always like, it's their fault, it's their fault. It's if they, and we don't have any power. We don't take any power for ourselves. It's always everybody else's fault. We're blaming everybody. This was my story. Sorry, not to
Yeah.
project my story. Um, and it was a real wake up call as far as I need to start taking action. I need to get my power back. I am a human being, just like every other human being on the planet. And I have the ability to be able to pivot, change, refocus if I want to.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I took my power back literally that day. That
Well,
day.
so I want to highlight this to the community because it's really important. What I heard you say was you were made aware and you took action. And that's profound because a lot of people, they get that awareness, but they allow fear or just lack of self-confidence to motivate them to take a small action. And the only way in which you were going to move forward out of any situation is to take action. So I love that. And
Yeah,
so you said that you took action that day. What did that action look like?
literally within seconds, I went from this total basket case on the floor. I was in the dark. I sat up, I cleared my face, and I was like, I need to make a plan right now. Literally in that moment, I took action and I got out some sort of a notebook and I started making plans. What do I need? You know, support, money, network, a business, a bank account. Like, what are the things that I need to start doing this? And within a very short amount of time, I opened up a secret bank account. I started 3 online secret businesses over the course of time, right? This wasn't that day. And I started to create money. I took on the identity of a squirrel for real. What do squirrels do? They don't do anything. All they do is look for nuts. That's it. You never see a squirrel just relaxing. You never see a squirrel like having a conversation. Squirrels are always looking for nuts, just everywhere, just looking everywhere. And that's what I really turned into. And that might sound anxiety filled. That might sound like, oh, high intensity, but that is the persona that I needed to take on in order to drive, in order for the catalyst to get the movement that I needed to move myself out of that situation. So I just was looking for money everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
And started collecting money.
So something you mentioned that I'd like you to touch upon a little further is it was old white men who helped you. And so what do you mean by that? And yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I would Google inspirational stories, motivational stories when I found out the relationship I was in. So I would Google up, and Google would share 100 white old men before they would share a woman.
So
And
true.
yeah, so I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. I wasn't like, let me find a story that's so similar to mine. I was just like, give me the number one guy, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins was like always number one for a really long time. Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn,
Oh, yeah.
Joel Osteen, Wayne Dyer, Les Brown, who isn't white but is old. And these men were telling me that I could do anything. Anything was
Yep.
possible. Step into your power, believe, trust. And that's what really took me to women, right? Because what happened to me is, yes, I trusted. I almost took my life as an experiment. I was so fucked up. Like there was so much fuckery going on in my life that I was just like, what's the worst? I could die. Like that's literally the worst. I could die. There's
Yep.
nothing worse than where I'm at right now. So like, why not just trust some random person who's saying that if I do all the things then? But the issue that I saw was I was single mom, Mexican, no college education, not married, broke, right? I'm like way the hell down here. And then freaking Tony Robbins and Les Brown are like 1,000 heavens away from me. So like, where's the connection? And I think that's a lot of people's issue is they're like, it's so freaking far away that they're like, there's no freaking way I can go from this to that. That's not even a thing. So the reason I started working with women is because this is the gateway drug. This is like the 10 steps, 12 steps up to get you closer so you can start to see some movement. You can start to be like, oh, okay. So she was not educated, Mexican, single mom, no money. Well, my story is very similar. Therefore, if she went from here to here, then maybe I can go from here to here, right? And that's really was a catalyst for why I do what I do right now.
That is so profound. You know, I've never really given it much thought, but I am an open book on social media. Like I'm a whole hot mess express sometimes, but it's very much for that same reason is people see me modeling. They see, you know, all of these wonderful things unfolding in my life. And it's easy to be like, I can never go from depressed and steeped in alcohol to having, you know, a relationship with a man who is so kind and loving and doing all these crazy things. And so I show up as a mess. And I think that there is so much power in what you do is being able to see them and say, listen, I can hold space for you here, but I'm gonna push you to get there because here is not serving you. And really, it's not serving the world, right? At the end of the day, we need women and men, but women to start to own their own power and really step into what they have to offer rather than play small, because that's what I believe we've all been conditioned to believe, men and women, right?
Exactly.
So talk to me about your vision for, I mean, Women Better 365, Sober Society, Her Nation, they're all collectively in service to others. So what is, you know, under all of those, what is your grand vision of being of service to others?
Yeah. So Human Better 365 is the long-term vision. This is my TEDx meets Mind Valley. The secret behind Human Better is to collect coaches, therapists, counselors, mentors to teach how to human better, right? How to human better. How can we do it better? Humaning as a verb versus a noun. But the secret is I am percolating and I am building this gorgeous empire, Her Nation, of female business owners. The idea is to get this to be so enormous and so heavy and such a strong, solid foundation of female business owners to be and to teach in Human Better 365. And this is why. For any of you, Carrie, or any of you listening, if you do personal development, if you go to business workshops, the amount of men in these rooms compared to the amount of women is incredibly intimidating. And intimidating on two sects. One, do I belong here? And then two, somewhat of a sexualization too. It almost seems very like there's so many men and then like one woman in the conversation. And it seems very like animalistic almost. Like it could be for some women very intimidating. I don't have a problem with it, but a lot of women do. Because it's so off balance. So the idea is filling Human Better 365 with this enormous amount of women. This way, when a woman walks into our workshops, it is teeter-tottering in the opposite direction for no other reason other than why not?
Facts. Why not? Yeah.
Right? Why not? It's not like the way it is now is bad. So why would the way it could be bad? It just is what it is, right? When you walk into one of these spaces, it is what it is. There's more men than women. So I want to build an atmosphere where It just is what it is. There's more women, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. Well, so that leads me. So here's my thing. I'm gonna keep it real. I love working with men. That's because actually you and I are similar in that we have a lot of masculine energy. We're tapped into the feminine, but we operate in business in our masculine energy. And so I love tapping into men. Where do you see men playing a role in supporting your vision? Because I really believe my big fear is that we tip this pendulum from all masculine to all feminine. And the reality is we need a balance of both to really elevate the collective consciousness of all humanity, not just women and or men. And I also believe that both men and women are hurt. We're told different lies, but at the end of the day, the men who are in the room in power struggle with their own insecurities, talk about being the providers and all that. So what's your vision for holding space for the men while creating this massive empire that's supportive of the women, and rightfully so?
Yeah. And the idea is yes to all of that, 100%. Emphasis on I work really well with men. However, my whole thing is just creating a safe space for women. That's it. That's really all it is. Women are intimidated. They don't feel like they have a place at the table. They don't feel like they can speak up. They don't feel like if they do speak up, people will listen to them. And when you are a woman who doesn't come with the oomph that you and Carrie and I come with, they don't raise their hands. Yeah, they don't raise their hands. They don't speak their story. They don't show their worth. They don't come with knowledge. They stay small because there's so many others. So if we could off balance it with, hey, I'm still me, right? We're not trying to change anybody here. You're still you, but you're now surrounded by more feminine energy. The probability of those women testing out the water, sticking their toes in, speaking out becomes stronger. And the idea isn't to keep people in a space of, the idea is to have them have a safe space to grow so that then they can enter Carrie's workshops, Samantha's programs, Tony Robbins seminars, and then they can feel comfortable stepping in because they practiced in a more safe environment. And not that any other environment isn't safe, but just they feel safer. And that's all it is. It's a stepping stone. I'm creating the stepping stone from here to here by giving them this space right here to test it out.
Yeah. And that's really beautiful. And it's interesting because as you were saying that, I was thinking really our call to action to men should be to encourage their women to, join Her Nation, or a safe space for them to learn and grow and just be open about who they are and feel like they're not going to be judged. Because you and I both know, man, women have been taught to tear the shit out of each other. Like I see it so often. It is, even now, it blows my mind how defensive a lot of women are when I drop in their DM. Well, why do you want to have a conversation? And I'm like, well, because I liked what you had to say. Why not? But there's this real resistance to being supported by another woman. How do you contend with that in your organization? Because I'm sure you buck up against it.
Yeah, 100%. How do I deal with that? Okay, there's two ways to deal with this. What you're talking about. One, having cold conversations. Yes, that happens all the time. The way that I have combated it is I call out to my network that knows, likes, and trusts me. And I say, hey, I need more women like you to be connected to me. Please bring them to me. So when it's a warm connection, now I don't have that friction.
Mm,
The really interesting thing about it too, and this is just a realization that I've just come to have recently. And this is not saying that I'm talking about networking. This is not saying that networking in person is bad or networking in events is bad, but I've done so much of it. There is a distinct difference in the way people show up when it is a warm connection from somebody else versus just a cold connection.
mm.
It's so interesting. Like when people show up and it's a warm connection on a Zoom like this, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you. Brenda had such amazing things to say about you versus, hey, I'm Sally, and what the fuck do you want?
But isn't that wild though? So really, let's talk about this
Yeah.
because men are not like that. If
Yeah.
you walk into a networking group with men who don't know each other, you just see, hey, I'm Bob, I'm a lawyer, and I did it right. And there is none of this like, "Nyeh, what's in
Yeah.
it for her?" Or yeah, and so I think for me, I I'm like the most warm, open person. So when I get that, particularly around women, I'm like, oh, damn. Like, I just don't
Yeah.
get it. But it also goes to the fact that I have confidence and I love myself enough to know that I can sit in a room with Sabrina Victoria or, anybody and know my worth. And I
Yeah.
think that's really where your her nation comes into play is helping people recognize their intrinsic worth, women in particular, and realizing that you know, we live in an abundant world. We don't need to compete. That what you have to offer is going to be the thing that person needs, and what I have to offer is different, and it's not good or bad. It just is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And the abundance is a thing. People don't really realize how many people, how much money, how much housing, how much clothes. Like there's always this sense of like a lack. And there's literally, we see this even with food. Like people will just eat all the food. And I'm like, that there's more food like
yeah,
tomorrow. Like you're going to eat again tomorrow. You don't have to eat all everything is okay. And it's like a constant thing. We have to remind ourselves, like, hey, there's more coming. There's more
yeah.
coming for you. Everything is fine. You don't have to, hoard and stuff and our mental, emotional, physical being. There's more coming.
Well, would you not agree, though, that that is what society perpetuates? If you look at any of the narratives around news, I mean, I stopped watching the news forever ago, but anytime I turn it on, they're either pushing fear and they're pushing pills. And I'm like, oh my God, you can't, no wonder people are like all mixed up, right?
Yeah.
It's just being fed to us in doses.
Yeah.
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 So a couple things you highlighted that I one resonate with, and two, I'd like you to touch upon a little bit more for the community is, so you are not college educated, you're Mexican, where did you get this drive? And I imagine it came before you even recognized you were in an abusive relationship because you alluded to the fact that you were already established. So kind of what was your childhood like, and did that set you up on this path, or did you have to curate yourself?
Yeah, it was all perpetuated when I was little. So much so that like my sister, who we were not in an argument, but like it's just a thing that she let me know when we were in our 30s. I was such a I'm the oldest. She's like 2.5 years younger than me. And then we have a really little brother who's just like really young. That didn't really have anything to do with her and I's relationship. He kind of was like an oops baby. But we have a great relationship with him too. Anyways, I was such a people pleaser and like 100%er. And I just fiend on it. I fiend on it from my mother and my father. It was like my entire identity. I would go above and beyond all the time. But what it actually wound up doing, I know we're not talking about my sister here, but what it actually wound up doing is My sister went in the complete opposite direction because she's like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to be Sabrina, that she just kind of fell by the wayside and became like the half-asser, basically, like everything she did half-ass. Now she's an adult now and things are different, but I've always had that. I always wanted to have all of the recognition, all of the congratulations, all of the praise. And I don't know, I haven't like dug deep into this, but there's one thing that I believe it was, like on a surface level, not digging, right? I haven't done like deep work in this, but my sister and I are the same height, same stature, same size feet, same size hands. We're like the same body. She's a little darker than me. I'm a little lighter. She has straight hair. I have curly hair. But I always held more weight than she did. She was naturally so like model skinny. And we would eat the same thing. And the weight would come onto me. She just had a super fast metabolism. So anyways, growing up, whenever like friends, family, mom, dad, everybody, we go up to friends, like meet at the movies. My sister would get, oh my gosh, Jessica, you're so skinny. I just said her name. I don't know if I should have done that. Jessica, you're so skinny. And then they'd be like, what's up, Sabrina? And I wasn't obese. I was just like how I am now. I'm just like I just got like a little extra. I just got like a little extra. It's not, I'm not, overweight.
You're perfectly beautiful. Yeah.
Sickly skinny.
Yeah.
So even my parents called her Flaca, which in Spanish means the thin one. So her nickname was Flaquita. My nickname was Sabrina. So in my head, she was the thin one and I was the fat one. And so I think that was like, since she just automatically got compliments just by being there, I had to like get compliments by like showing up extra everywhere, right? I noticed somebody drops a soda. I right away, I'm like getting the napkins. I see somebody needs a straw, for their drink. I'm right away getting the straw. I see some, like I'm just always aware so that I can get the compliments.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't just naturally getting them in my world by first glance.
That is so fascinating. So I'm a twin and parallel stories, right? My twin sister, I'm Portuguese and Irish and Italian. She's dark skinned, I'm light skinned, and I was always heavier, never obese. But it's interesting because the path I took was, I didn't have this loving family, so really you didn't get attention. So I was like, I'm going to do anything and everything outrageous. I'm just going to be like so extra over the top. Like I would walk in and be like, I'm tripping on acid and you can't do anything about it. Like totally in your face, like screw you. But it was for much of the same reason, because even though they don't intend it, it's like, oh, you're the skinny one. Oh, hi. And that was rough. So I'm curious, how have you been able to kind of contend with learning your self-worth, like having a strong foundation in who you are, Sabrina, but also recognizing that you now no longer need those accolades? Because, right, the only person we need to please is ourselves at the end of the day. And I imagine, as somebody who was constantly being a people pleaser, that had to be kind of difficult for you to break from.
Yeah. It was my abusive relationship. He obviously gravitated towards me because I was such a people pleaser. He used that. So I would do anything and everything for him all the time in all the areas. And then nothing was ever perfect. Right. So I took care of the house. I had to be a trophy wife. There was a point in my life where I was super skinny, trying to like hit that. I was like a size 2, 4 and like a skeleton. And, so being the trophy wife, being the good mom, taking care of the business, taking care of the house and all the areas. And when you're taking care of all the areas, trying to do everything at 100%, there's always something wrong, right? There's always like a dog hair on the floor. There's always a little scratch somewhere. There's always somebody that didn't get a paycheck. There's always like the food is burnt every day. There's something in one of your areas of your life that's wrong, but everything was on me. So everything was my fault. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was people pleasing, trying to do, I was literally working like 14, 16-hour days, plus making dinner, plus working out, trying to be a good mom. And then when I was trying to escape, I was also running a business. So I was literally on like 3 hours of sleep for years. But
Yeah.
anyways, there just came a point where, you know, nothing was ever good enough. He was never happy, never satisfied, always found the one thing to bitch about. And I dove into personal development and just kind of realized like boundaries. And the only person I have to please is myself. And
Yeah.
I don't have to show up for anybody to at any capacity except for myself. I'm under the firm belief that if everybody just takes care of themselves, just take care of yourself. If you have a
Yep.
baby that's different, right? Like until they're 12, but once your child's 12, they need to do shit on their own. Like when my son turned 12, that was it. You do your own laundry, you make your own lunch. I was still cooking dinner, but like clean your own room, do your own homework, self-sufficient. Um, and that's I'm a firm believer of that. You do you. Even with my fiance, sometimes he's like overly like coddling to me. And I'm like, dude, I can do me. You do you. And until you have yourself at 100%, which nobody effing does, don't come over here trying to assist me. I'm
Yeah.
totally self sufficient. What I'm not fine with is you being at 70% because you're helping me with 10% when you could be over there knowing your own stuff perfectly and you could be at 90 and I could be at 90. I'm
Yeah.
not down with that. And I think so many people pleasers are like that. We're trying to give and take. You're at 50% over here. Like, get over here and do your own shit and stop coddling other people. You know, it's insane to me.
I so resonate with that because, fortunately, I was a young leader. I started leadership at 17, and my parents instilled work ethic. They did a wonderful job at instilling work ethic. So at 17, when I'm taking in these teenagers and they don't have the ability to sweep a floor and stuff, I'm just flabbergasted. So when I had my kids, I was it was unequivocal to me that I was like, they were 2 and 3 helping me stack pieces of wood. Not a lot, but enough to recognize one, we're part of a community. Two, you're responsible just as much as I am to take care of this household. And at 12, I'm like, mom's here, I got your back. But at the end of the day, my job is not to create this person who, this sounds awful, but it's true, who sucks and leeches off of society. I want you to learn yourself, chase after whatever makes you happy. I will support you even when you fall. But just know that I'm going to make you get back up, because otherwise you're just staying down. And then all you do is sit in depression, anxiety, and really sell yourself short. Right. And I totally get that. And then secondly, I had a conversation with Nana recently about the fact, we have a wonderful relationship, but I said, the only thing I ever need from you is for you to take care of yourself. That's it. Because when you take care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, we are like a powerhouse couple, because I'm good, you're good. If I need help with something, I'm gonna ask you for it for sure. But at the end of the day, like, I want you to be so solid in what it is you're doing, chasing after your dreams, because otherwise, and people pleasing, but even outside of that, resentment builds up, because at some point
Totally.
it's like give, you can't, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't want, from my perspective, that's the worst thing I could ever have in a relationship, resentment. You can tell me, you can speak your truth, but the minute there's resentment, that to me is so detrimental. And so I just love that so much.
Yes. I always used to tell my son when he was younger that there's mothering and there's teaching. And there's a switch that you have to make as a mother right around the double digits, 10, 11, 12. You switch from mothering to teaching. And if you don't make that switch, it's detrimental to your child.
And we see it all the time.
Yeah.
And then and look, there's no judgment, because I know that we all do the best we can, but the reality is what happens when that child who's been coddled or taken care of or not really held accountable for meeting expectations and their own responsibilities goes out into the world? Well, then they struggle immensely because they don't have resilience, which is what, you talk a lot about resilience and perseverance. How can you know what you're capable of if you've never been pushed
Yeah.
to actually achieve a result in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
100%.
love that. So talk to me about what resilience and perseverance means to you.
Oh, I mean, it's a huge part of my story. And I honestly, I was just having a conversation with my parents a couple weeks ago, and honest and just like with all of the heart in me was like, I freaking love my story. Because my story has a lot to do with them. Abandoned me, kicked me out. I got disfellowshipped from my church when I got pregnant. I got pregnant at the age of 20, and I wasn't married. So I was a sinner, and I was cast out. And at the time, obviously, I wasn't like, yes. At the time, I was like suicidal,
Yeah, yeah.
like dark. Um, but now looking back, I'm just like, I love every single thing that I've been through. I really take it on as being at the gym. I mean, my mental ability to be able to take on pressure and challenges is so like, is so, what is that, like focused in, is so keyed
It's
in.
hardwired and embedded at this point.
Dude, it's like anything. It's almost to the point where I'm like, what else? I'm like,
Yeah.
looking, what else? What else can you give me? Because I know at this point, nothing. I mean, it was death. Death
You
would
know,
kill me.
I love that because I have a very similar mentality. You can't go through my experiences, but I'm curious. So you mentioned, so you were raised in a religious, like,
Yeah,
share
very
that
religious.
story.
Yeah, raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I
Okay.
got pregnant at 20 with no husband. And so I was disfellowshipped, where they kick you out of the religion, you lose contact with everybody. And so I led this stereotypical single mom, just broke life of literally no money. I didn't know what I was doing. I was totally naive. Jehovah's Witnesses are very sheltered. And the thing with Jehovah's Witnesses, when you get disfellowship, if you want to get back in, meaning if you want to get communication back with your mom and your dad and like every friend you've ever known your whole life, then when you're disfellowshipped, you cannot talk to the people in the religion because you're disfellowshipped, but you also cannot talk to the people outside the religion because they're worldly, they're bad, they're sinful, they're satanic. So you're literally all by yourself. And the thing is they tell on each other. Jehovah's Witnesses are taught to narc. So if they see you, like let's say I worked at the place I worked at, and Sally was like, hey Sabrina, I really see that you're struggling. Oh, you're 8 months pregnant, you don't have communication with your mom, I see you crying in the bathroom. These are real things that happen. I see you crying in the bathroom every once in a while. Let me take you out to lunch. Like, let's sit down. I'm a mom. I also was a single mom. I also got divorced. I could, blah, blah, blah. If a Jehovah's Witness, which they're freaking everywhere, saw me at a restaurant eating a sandwich with Sally, they would go back and they would tell.
That is insane. So wait, so you can't talk to your parents. So did you have a good relationship with them until this, and then you just got
Yeah.
cast out?
Yeah. They were a regular mom and dad. Yeah. Cause I was a sinner. When you sin, it's called a gross sin. When you sin to that capacity, yeah, they disfellowship you. And literally that day, all communication ends. Zero. Like I had my baby, I went through the whole pregnancy. I had my baby. We called like, hey, your first grandchild is born. His name is Elijah, blah, 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 pounds, time, no callback.
Wow.
No recognition. Yeah, nothing. Until I got back in. It took me a year and a half to get what's called reinstated. And when I
Yep.
was reinstated a year and a half later, it's as if it never even happened. Went and traveled to their house, had dinner, ate some enchiladas, and is what it is. But
So
yeah,
how did, so I imagine that you are no longer part of that organization. And if that's the case, how were you able to create a relationship with your parents outside of that religion?
because I'm still technically in.
Interesting.
So they have what's called, are you religious?
I'm spiritual, not religious.
Okay, so I can talk frankly. So it's just it's all like facade. It's just a game, girl. The whole
It
thing's just
is.
a game.
Well,
So
that's,
there's like ways out. Like, so we were in Chicago. That's where it was. It's everywhere, but that's where like my card was. That's where my membership was. It was all there. So when I've moved all over the place. So my card got lost. And like no one knows where I am. And I'm technically still back in. So in my parents' eyes, I'm still in. I was never disfellowshipped again. And they have what's called fading. So it basically means you go, 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 stop. And so you fade out. And it doesn't mean, basically, I didn't like, the whole disfellowship is based on how people view you,
yeah.
right? So it's order to, like, people want, what is that called? Wants revenge, right? So if I'm just like leading my best life within the church, and then also I'm just like smoking and doing drugs and like being a prostitute, and then people find out, people, nothing against prostitution, people are like, how dare she? Oh my gosh, she needs to get punished, right? So the punishment is disfellowshipping because people know, people see you. But when you fade out, like no one knows or cares about me anymore. I'm like so far away and like out of people's minds that they don't even give a crap if I'm in or if I'm out. It doesn't even matter. So there's no like, doesn't matter if I'm disfellowshipped or
Yeah,
not
because
disfellowshipped
they
because I just,
still look good. Because at the end of the day, it is, I mean, and that's why I'm not a fan of religion, because I think that one, it's a business, and two, it's steeped in fear.
yeah,
Most religion, not all, but most of it's steeped in fear. And so I tell people I'm very spiritual. I connect with source, I manifest, but I don't, there's not a religious ideology that I'm bought into, specifically one that uses fear as a means to control their people, because that's literally counterproductive. If you're really looking to manifest, they say stay in love and joy. So how can you be in fear but also manifest from a place of love and joy? You
yeah.
absolutely can't.
And the
So
whole time I was in that religion, and the whole time through the whole disfellowshipping, for those 24 years or whatever that was, every day, anxiety, stress, fear, not doing it correctly, sinner, because you're either thinking something bad or doing something bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like in the eyes of the Bible.
yeah,
And so, yeah, what a freedom for me. What a freedom for me. And not having to feel, I have none now, like none. I
yeah.
just live my life and I breathe and I feel so relaxed and it's wonderful for me.
Well, I just watched something Nana sent me, but I've known this for a while. They say that, so I study the energy of emotions, that, but they say that living your authentic life actually vibrates 4 times higher than
Wow.
unconditional love. So really, essentially, what you're doing in your community, in Her Nation and Human Better 365 and Sober Society, is you're empowering people to show up fully expressed as their unique, authentic, individual self, whether you like to dress as a pony or wear skulls or whatever, and still be accepted and loved. And in doing so, you are actually raising the collective vibration of those people, which counteract, interestingly enough, the fear that all of these other people who were stuck in this dogma are sending out into the universe. So I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, I'll send you that clip. It was interesting. But it's really powerful. And so what I love so much is that you broke free from the expectation of being anybody but yourself.
Yeah.
And really, that is all any person could ever want, is just being unafraid to show up unapologetically as themselves and trusting that they will be accepted by the people who are they're meant for, and trusting that the people that they're not meant for will just fall away, because that's really what will happen.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, I have a lot of admiration for you. Really appreciate all the work you're doing. I think that, we need more women to show up in service of other women to help them find their voice and speak their truth. And to your point, share your story, because much like you, there's not one part of my story I regret, not one. I own it all like a badge of honor because it's helped me become the woman I am. What would you like to leave this community with? If there's one teachable moment or a thought that you could impress upon this community that you can leave them with, what would that be?
Yeah, what I'm really being pulled to say can't be said in like 10 seconds. But I'm
Well,
just
you don't
being
have 10
pulled to say
seconds. You
it.
have 15 minutes, but you
Okay.
tell me whatever you want.
This kind of came up earlier in our conversation, and it's just coming up for me again. And it's this word empath. I've always identified as an empath, and an empath to me was always like somebody so loving and somebody so sweet and somebody so kind. And you said something at some point that just triggered this reminder for me, of, I don't remember exactly what you said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was something to the effect of wanting something back in return. I don't remember what it was, but empathy, there's a difference between being empathetic and being a people pleaser or having empathy. And the distinction is incredibly strong, yet hidden. And it takes real deep awareness that many empaths don't necessarily want to admit to. And it's taken me years to come to terms with this for myself. And it's been years now, but I'm just being pulled to share it today. To be an empath, to identify yourself as a people pleaser seems as if it's a good thing. Like, I am a people pleaser. I please people. I have high empathetic, I'm an empath. Humans only do it. I don't care who you talk to. We do things for ourselves.
Yeah, spot on. Yep.
So you can say till the cows come home that you are truly a people pleaser and you truly do things for people. But if you are doing things for people to the detriment of yourself, your own full health, full mental health, emotional health, and physical health, in order to help others, complete greed.
Yeah.
It is all for show. All of it. It is all to be able to say, look at what I have done.
Yep.
It is not because you actually care. And that hits hard. Like, it hit me hard because I have identified as an empath and a people pleaser since the day I found out about narcissism. I was like, oh, that is me. I'm always trying to help everybody. I'm always trying to be the people pleaser, but it wasn't. And as my story actually conveyed with my sister, it was all for the accolades. It was all for the admiration. It was all so that I could get attention, so that I could get 100%, so that I could get recognized. It was not actually because I gave a crap about that person needing a napkin. It was so that I could get wow, Sabrina, you're so intuitive that you knew I needed a napkin when I ate my sandwich and a little ketchup dribbled off of my face. I don't know why I keep going back to food, but this is
Food is good.
This is the vibration that we sometimes build our pedestal upon, and it's for all the wrong reasons. So instead of going around being like, I'm an empath, I'm a people pleaser, cool. Good on you. Yes, we're in a process of healing. We're in a process of a journey, but start to figure out and really key in on for real why. For real why. A real hard talk with yourself over and 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 over again. Look internally at your own life. Where are you in your own life? Are you at a 50% while you're doing all this people pleasing? Right? So versus being empathetic, right? Carrie is empathetic. You can tell her a story. She can relate. She gets it. She feels emotion. She can get teary-eyed. She helps people. That's being empathetic. But there's a difference. There's a distinct difference between being an empath, being a people pleaser, doing everything for everybody else and the reasons of which, and being empathetic to people.